I left off on the fifth gear, shifting. So the civil rights movement um, was a level of consciousness that was expanded and jumped on because the level of consciousness before that was so dark and so destructive on an inhuman scale that things needed to change. Something needed to happen in order to release the pressure of human interaction with each other, with the people who call themselves in power and all this. Something needed to happen. So the civil rights movement was installed in that time frame to release that pressure. And if it was designed any further than that, so it's not saying that everybody in the civil rights movement was compromised and all this other stuff. No, the majority of people in there are understanding that change needed to happen. They got involved. They put themselves out there to put the information out to people so people can start thinking and imagining something bigger than this, bigger than that at that time, and to move on and go from there. Meanwhile, there's other chess games that are being played on other levels, on every level, and we get manipulated into thinking that it's only really about a one-time thing. It's like oh, we need to start changing things, and this is what we need to do. See, that's the whole program right there. That's a wall right there. It's thinking like a savior, thinking like a one-time thing, like it's giving your power away and waiting on something because you have a linear train of thought, when it's really everything. It's every day, it's every moment, it's every process that you can think of internally, because that's nothing but a reflection of the external processing that the collective is doing every moment of every day. So every moment of every day that we give our power away to another individual or another group think or a frame of mind or another future, then we are actually projecting the future that has been installed for us to limit ourselves. So with the movies and Hollywood, the news, the politics, technology, so even technology that gets released today, they even had this technology 50 years ago at least. They were just reverse engineering all this alien technology that came from Area 51 and before that, and everything that they've unlocked up until then, in order to, and slowly releasing it, because the money is still there as a complex to control, so they slowly release it to buy people in, giving a little, taking a lot more, giving a little, taking a lot more. And each time they give something, they're taking way more that we can't see. So this is why the civil rights movement looked so big and great back in the day, but yet today we're worse off today than we were back then, because we're psychologically whipping and chaining our children to a system that is doing the same thing that it was doing back in that time frame in the 60s. We still haven't left the 60s right now. If we're still talking about saving the education system that is based on manipulating the mind to implode on itself, if we're still talking about the politicians that are the same politicians that were back there in that same time frame, that were hanging people back in that time frame, we're still not talking about the military industrial complex that even our own president even at that time brought out at that time. We're still not talking about that. If we're still not realizing the prison industrial complex that is going on right now, and how we have the most people locked up ever on the whole planet, we're not talking. See, it's the things that we're not talking about, and the things that make you, that you can see how ridiculous these politicians and whoever that gets out into our vision, our information streams, you can see what they're talking about even more so by seeing what they're not talking about, because it's not really that complicated to put the pieces together when you remove the majority of the judgment out of it. Like when you see the origins of racism, when you see the origins of sexism, when you see the origins of eugenics, when you see the origins of politicians, the origins of money, the origins of the education system, the origins of NASA, when you see the origins of control, when you see the origins of slavery, when you see the origins of like all like the gods, and the interaction between like from Egypt, and like the shifting of times from when Egypt was blossoming, and when Greece came up, and then Rome came up, and then the Western civilization grew out of all this, and what happened when the Spanish went across the waters and went down to South America and went over to North America and really just like ripped a whole, just ripped it all out for gold, just ripped the hearts out for gold and control, and set the foundation. So like we can see, if we sit for a moment, so that's what I was missing in the last video, was time. And I'm glad it came up now, is because the time is the biggest part of control here, is because money manipulates individuals, just like in American Dream I said in the last video. Money manipulates individuals, or we manipulate ourselves by buying into money. We manipulate ourselves into projecting our realities into the future, which takes our lives away. We give our life away to a projection of the future. In every moment is with money, so you gotta like that whole. So let's say right now, if we can just, if this planet could sit outside of the idea of money and sit inside the space of harmonic living on this planet, which is not hard to do necessarily, because we've been doing this for the indigenous people have been doing, the people of the land have been living in harmony with this planet forever. And it's the simplicity of it all. It's the connection with our roots. It's the connection with our origins and what has been installed since then. So money has been installed into the mind to where it's killing people. And we're killing ourselves by projecting our futures into a space that doesn't exist. And if it does exist, it exists in a place that was created by something or somebody else that is not for our benefit. So this is why the Social Security gets invented, for control. Birth certificates, your number that's on your birth certificate is the same number that's on a dollar bill. The numbers that are on your license plates are the same numbers that are meant to control. It's like a birth certificate for your vehicle, to lock you into a system, to make you think that you have to pay into this system. If you go into the not-for-hire laws of just with the cars, you can see, like, even on that surface layer, you don't even have to pay into the DMV and the system of control that involves registering your vehicle and having a driver's license, because all of this is based upon being a corporate individual, being a commercial vehicle that drives these roads, when you, as the people's common law, have the right to travel these roads uninhibited, purely uninhibited by anybody. So like, to have all of these like amendments to humanity, basically, and these amendments to humanity have been created, so like there's so many have been created that they have imploded back on themselves, and that implosion is really what controllers are comfortable with allowing to be, because they exist in the chaos because they're few and we're the many. So if you can create an idea that allows the many to act chaotically, then you don't need many ideas. You just need a few, and then just play with them here and there, and then the masses will amplify it on themselves. So that's what happens in the monetary system. So the monetary system is used primarily, how I'm seeing it in this moment right now, to manipulate time, and the time of the individual's internal clock, biological clock, future projection clocks, the moment of time. Like we get so caught up in the idea of time existing in somebody else's idea of what the future looks like, that we forget about our own health in this moment. We forget about, or don't even really, we actually, a lot of the times, um, most of the time, we know, like for instance, for example, like food, the fact that organic food exists and non-organic food, or non-genetically modified, or genetically modified food exists, like that was invented. Like genetically modified food, they had to create that stuff, and it's all based upon like um, the salesmen say that it's for this and this, but you have to understand, like you were born not genetically modified. So to ingest a genetically modified substance in for whatever it is that they're saying, it doesn't matter what they're saying. That's affecting your generations, like in the future, your body now and your generations. So this is how just for example, genetically modified food affects time and our generations of time, and our we don't know how this affects genetically modified food affects our psyches. We know it affects our children in certain ways. The sugar mentality, just like the busy mentality of coffee shops everywhere. Like you can see, like with the gentrification movement that's going on, it's based upon creating, it's just another version of Christopher Columbus. So you're surrounded by condominiums, coffee shops, and dog parks. It means that you're just building upwards. You're building more and more like boxes of control, individuals who are less and less connected with the earth, and more connected with the illusions of what has been projected since the destruction has been, manipulated to be so massive and so mainstream. So politicians maintain that mainstream destructive mentality with ideas of, how things should move and where things should move and when things should move, and even the ideas of all the presidential election stuff happening right now, and then it's still like a year. It's like a hopelessness, like that time frame that's stuck with, like starting out with Trump, and then starting out with Bernie Sanders and Hillary and all these other like people who are put in front of your faces to project an idea. It's really killing the time between now and 2016 November. Like it's a hopeless state of mind, because those are your projections of your leaders, your future or whatever. So it's basically killing your future with more of the same. It's more of the same, and actually, it's a deeper cut. It's a deeper program, because we're starting to believe it even more. So, like Obama was set to, like he was installed to like mellow everybody out, like calm everybody down after Bush, so they can come in with their big heavy hitter movement, which is like the socialist movement or the Democrat, whatever they're calling it. It's a deeper control. It's government control. Like they want to say, oh, we can fix all this stuff. There's talk about all the bad stuff they're talking about, so you can see how deep their bad stuff goes. Right? Like Bernie Sanders, like you can see he's talking about the bankers. He's talking about um, other countries who give universal health care and universal this and universal that. But he's not talking about like the origins of the bad stuff that he's talking about. He's not talking about what led up to that, because if he starts talking about what led up to that, he will find himself sitting in that same seat, that that same seat that is part of those problems that he's continually, um, bashing to bring up his campaign. So, yeah. I guess the main point is when things are shifting into higher gears in this video, I wanted to leave it with this. So shifting from fourth gear in the civil rights to fifth gear of today with Bernie Sanders and Biden and Hillary and whatever the next moves are, just expanded even more to see like the bigger pictures that's not being spoken about, and we'll be able to see a lot more that's happening in